Sorbo. You've heard me talk about Mike Lindell, who I adore. You know, he's the inventor of My Pillow, and how that pillow has given me a good night's sleep that I need. In fact, I never knew how good I could sleep before I had my pillow. Mike continues to roll out new offers on his products, and the latest one is on his towel sets. Towels aren't something you think about often. I never knew what I was missing until I tried the towels just last year. Now, you have all helped build My Pillow into the incredible company that it is today, and you've trusted Mike Lindell to give you a great night's sleep. Mike's now changing the game with his 6-piece towel set. The set's made with USA cotton, making it extremely absorbent, and yet still providing that soft feel you look for in a towel. The set comes with 2 bath, 2 hand towels, and 2 washcloths, typically retailing for $109.99. But for a limited time, you can get this set for the low price of $39.99. And that's using promo code samsorbo. So remember, all My Pillow products come with a 60-day money-back guarantee. You just go to mypillow.com, click on the radio listener specials to get this insanely low price of $39.99 on the towel set. You'll find deep discounts on other My Pillow products as well. So enter promo code samsorbo, or you can call 800-625-5983. That's 800-625-5983 for these great radio specials. Hi, this is Sam Sorbo. I want to invite you all to join me at the Playbook for Home Learning Conference put on by Underground Education. There's a new community that started online called the Underground Education Community. You can find it by going to samsorbo.com. You can also find all the information about the conference, about how to approach education with your kids. Times are hard for parents right now. There's a lot going on in the schools that we don't like. But I'll tell you something, home learning is easier than you ever thought it could be and more fun than you ever imagined. So join me at the Your Playbook for Home Learning Conference this June 24-25 in Port St. Lucie, Florida. And we're going to have a great time. Go to samsorbo.com for more information on everything. I'll see you there. Hi there, welcome to the Sam Sorbo Show. I'm joined here, look at that guy. Isn't he fabulous? He is a renowned New Testament scholar with specialties in Jesus and the Gospels.
That's right.
Which apparently is like a pretty big deal because people specialize in Paul, or they specialize maybe in Matthew, or they just specialize in the God. Anyway, this guy's written 879 books. Is that what it is? He's written so many books.
Yeah, the number gets bigger and bigger.
Well, it does, right? Because you don't unwrite them like you're doing here, frankly, at this site. So we are at the site of Shiloh. I'm going to let you talk in just a sec.
Okay.
We're at the site in Shiloh in Israel. And there's an enormous archaeological dig that's happening here. There's actually another one that's on the other side. The whole thing is rife with archaeological findings. And I'm here with Craig Evans. And he is starring in a new movie that has yet to be named. Unfortunately, we don't have the name. So, what brings you here?
Well, I'm very interested in this whole theme. The history of the Tabernacle and Israel's 2 temples tie together, both Old Testament and New. And as Sam just said, my area of specialty is New Testament, Jesus and the Gospels. And the temple is very important for Jesus and the early church. And there are some people out there who say, well, the evidence is so thin, how do you know there really was a temple? And
That's right.
I said, okay, look, we need to start at the beginning. We need to start with the people of Israel at Sinai in the wilderness, getting instructions about building an ark, building a tabernacle, following that history through the southern part of what is now Israel, working its way north, and eventually a tabernacle is right here. The tabernacle would be just behind me over my left shoulder. And we're hoping today actually to confirm that. We have reasons to believe, Scott Stripling and his team, we have reasons to believe. We have found the platform on which the tabernacle stood. And so we hope to clear away a certain spot where we think we'll find a corner that will confirm that indeed this rectangular shaped platform is the right dimensions. The Bible spells out the dimensions for the tabernacle. And so the platform, if it corresponds with that, we know the tabernacle very likely rested here. We have found fragments of an altar. We have found sacrificial animal bones that have been segregated, right bones on this side, left bones on that side. There are many indications that sacrifice was offered here. These indications correspond with the Jewish tabernacle. So this is a big deal, and this could be a very big day. And we're really glad Kevin and Sam Sorbo are here with us.
Well, I'm just along for the ride, but Kevin's here. He'll be in the documentary when it's completed. And one of the indications that this might be the tabernacle is how it's facing as well as the dimensions, right? And
That's
so
right.
the second corner indicates dimension, which
That's
we
right.
find fascinating. But tell us, so this idea that maybe the tabernacle didn't exist, maybe there was no, maybe Solomon's temple didn't exist.
I know, and there are people who say that. There are two types. There are minimalists who say, well, maybe David existed, we don't know, but the biblical story is exaggerated, and his son Solomon, surely that's all mythology. It's all propaganda from a long time ago, but it doesn't really reach back to the 10th century. And those are minimalists.
Hold on, 10th century.
BC.
Thank you, yeah.
So, you're talking like 950 BC. That's the 10th century BC.
I had to get that squared away. Whether
That's right.
10th century was 1000 something or 900 something.
That's right.
Sadly.
Yeah, that's right. A lot of people, they don't understand the calendar very well. They don't
I'm
know
a
their
novice.
history very well. And then we have a group of minimalists who are minimalists on steroids. They're mythicists. And they say, David didn't even exist. There was no David, there was no Solomon. There wasn't even a temple. And that's a very contemporary propaganda. It's for political reasons. It's in large measure designed to invalidate Israel.
Right.
To say Israel has no claim to the land because Israel has no history here.
In fact, the Muslims currently claim that there was no temple on the Temple Mount.
I've been accosted on the Temple Mount some years ago with a study group. We were talking about the Dome of the Rock that likely rests atop the very foundation on which the Jewish temple at one time stood. And someone very aggressively, a Palestinian Muslim, aggressively inserted himself. And we weren't talking loudly, and said, why are you lying to these people? There was never any Jewish temple here, which is really silly because in Islamic history, Muslims always recognized that a Jewish temple stood on the Temple Mount at one time. That's why they built the Dome of the Rock.
In fact, because that's sort of the MO. They find a Jewish temple and they put a mosque in
That's
where
right.
it is.
They'll build mosques on top of Jewish and Christian holy sites. They'll convert churches into mosques like the Hagia Sophia, which is in Istanbul. That's a very old. It's a real insult if we were to seize the Dome of the Rock and say let's turn it into a synagogue or turn it into a church, the Islamic world would go nuts. Well, they took our oldest and most emblematic church in the eastern part of Christendom, turned it into a mosque, and that'd be like grabbing St. Peter's in Rome and saying we're going to turn it into a mosque. So anyway, this is not the right thing to do, and denying somebody's history. Like, we don't deny that Muhammad lived. We don't deny Islamic history and its conquests and things that Islam has done. And I don't understand why they...
We don't deny that Muhammad murdered several hundred people.
Well, and we don't have to... in Islamic tradition itself, the Islamic tradition brags about how many people Muhammad killed.
It's in the book.
Or how many women he had sex with or maybe raped in a single day. It's actually, that's in their own stories.
Didn't he marry his wife when she was 6 years old?
I don't know.
I think he didn't consummate it until she was 9.
Yeah, and there's things, we would call it rape, we would call it polygamy, obviously. We would even call it, in some cases, incest, pedophilia, or whatever. In the Islamic tradition, I know the world was different then, but I think a lot of our politicians and cultural influencers just want to whitewash that and ignore it. And slavery came to an end thanks to the spread of Christianity. Slavery is still practiced in some parts of the Islamic world today. So I'm not an expert in all these things. I'm
What do
not
you
a
think the
politician.
hijab is?
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. Feminism hasn't gotten much made
No.
much headway in the Islamic world. But my area of expertise in history, early Christian history especially, but also Jewish history of this time, I'm very unhappy with those who want to deny the evidence. When you have evidence, it's written history from not just Jews and Christians, but from Greeks and Romans.
Sure.
They don't have any dog in the fight. They don't care about Israel's claim to the land. That's meaningless to them. And they acknowledge, Tacitus talks about, for example, in the early 2nd century, he says there was a temple of immense wealth that the Jews had in Jerusalem. That's pretty important evidence right there.
Where did they hide it?
Well,
Oh, I know, under the Temple Mount,
the Romans,
under the Dome of the Rock.
the Romans looted a lot of that.
Why do
but-
they call it the Temple Mount? Because there was no temple there?
Yeah, well, it's
It's like wishful thinking. Maybe they'll put a temple here one day. We'll call it the Temple Mount.
sure, and and the platform on which it's gotten larger and larger. Herod expanded it to its greatest extent. The Romans built a fortress, the Antonia, at
So
the
this
one
is
corner.
interesting because while we were filming, I asked probably a silly question, but that's maybe what I'm known for. Why would Herod build, an edifice for the Jews? Why would that be practical for him? Why would he expend so much time and treasure to do that?
Oh, I think Herod politically was a smart guy, really smart. He knew how to befriend the Romans. He knew how to stay on the good side of most people. And you talk about a challenge to be the leader of the Jewish people. You have various factions. They want a Davidic king to come back. Others don't care. Others want some kind of a Hasmonean ruler that they had before the time of Herod. From the family of Hasmoneus, the Maccabees, the guys who won independence from the Greeks. You got all kinds of different opinions. Herod is not really Jewish. He marries a Jewish woman. His father had converted to Judaism, but ethnically he really wasn't Jewish. And a lot of people didn't accept him. Well, what does he do? He says, okay, I'll kill two birds with one stone. I'll build a grand temple. Because the second temple that the Jewish people built after the exile in the 5th century when they returned, about 500 or so BC, they built a new temple. It just wasn't anything like Solomon's temple. People actually cried. Older people who remembered as children what Solomon's temple looked like, when they saw the new temple, they wept. That's really interesting. Well, Herod knew that, and so fast forward 450 years, he dismantles that second temple that was kind of plain and drab, and he builds a beautiful temple, and very grand, and expands the temple court, and that's why it became known as the Temple Mount. So the other bird he killed with that stone was he employed thousands of people, and you don't have much unrest when everybody's working, they're getting paid, and this went on after Herod died. In fact, the temple wasn't really finished until all the buildings, the temple precincts, the whole business wasn't finished till the year 64 AD. So they've been working on that temple structure for something like 80 years or so. And tragically,
So as they're finishing building it, Jesus says, not a single stone will remain.
that's right. And you can imagine how shocking that. They're still building it, but the sanctuary is
It's there,
finished.
right.
And it's got gold coverings in places. Josephus, a Jewish historian, says, man, when the sun is up, it's so bright you have to look away. It's blinding, the reflection of the sun off of the gold on the temple. But Jesus foretold that, these beautiful buildings, you're impressed, they're going to be destroyed. Not a stone will be left on a stone. All will be thrown down. And he's saying that like in the year 30 or something like that.
Right.
And I'm sure people hearing that think, well, that is a stupid
Clearly
idea.
he's crazy.
Oh, these big, beautiful buildings. And people weren't in the habit of destroying temples in antiquity, you need to know. The Romans would not go around destroying temples. So Jesus' prophecy struck many, I'm sure, as crazy. And then 40 years later, it happened. The temple gets leveled. And that's what the archaeologists now do, is look for those pieces. Fine pieces of stone dressed a certain way, carved a certain way, inscriptions. And we have found lots of things that make it clear that the temple really was there on the Temple Mount, that is rightly named, and it would have been located right where the Dome of the Rock is today. And that's why it's an important site to look at and go below and check things out.
Okay, we just have a few more minutes. We got to tour Solomon's Stables, or what's commonly known to non-Muslims, I suppose, as Solomon's Stables. And also, I wanted you to comment on, when I was last here a couple years ago, there were, I don't know if it was rumors, but we learned that the Jordanians who control the Temple Mount, right, are like clearing out, excavating archaeologically underneath and just tossing things. And they made a huge pile of cast-offs and threw them, and they were discovered by the Israelis, and some of it was retaken or whatever.
Yeah, that's right. And that whole story is sad. The foundations at the south end of the Temple Mount, where the Al-Aqsa Mosque is located, it's known with its kind of oxidized, grayish, blackish grayish dome. And it was necessary to get below that, and this is the traditional location of Solomon's stables. That, of course, is just medieval. Solomon didn't have any horses down there. But the debris was being cleared out, and as Sam just said, we were privileged. It's not easy to, as a non-Muslim, to get down there. All of us were privileged to go down there and look at things and take photos, and it's just vast. And it's at the southeast corner of the Temple Mount. So when you're looking at it, it just looks like solid limestone. You might see a few windows. That's where we were. It's like a double-decker below, and it's just vast. Well, truckloads, hundreds of truckloads of debris were removed.
Well, archaeological treasures.
A lot of it, yeah. And they wouldn't allow Israeli or anybody, archaeologists, just to observe, but we did know where they took all this debris and dumped it. And it has been scooped up and has been brought to a place where it can be wet sifted. And it was in this context that like the King Joash, or Jehoash as it would be pronounced in Hebrew, there's a plaque, it's burned. There are gold globules, they're microscopic in the most case, embedded in it. There's no question this is a plaque that was on Solomon's temple when it was destroyed by the Babylonians in 586 BC. This plaque had been on that temple for probably 100 and some years, maybe more. And it's a dedication celebrating the restoration of it. And that makes sense, because the temple around 800 BC would be like 150 years old and would need some touching up. So these are the kinds of treasures that were just thrown out as dump material.
Yeah.
And we're now wet sifting through it and trying to recover some of the treasures, at least, that were there on the Temple Mount.
Yeah. Dr. Craig Evans, and if you want to know anything more about him, just go to craigevans.com, or is it Dr. Craig Evans?
Yeah, it's craigavans.com.
There it
I
is.
do have a web page.
It's fabulous. You'll see all 879 books.
Let me get the record straight. It's about 750 publications, of which 90, it's hard to keep up, 92 or 3 are books. And I got 2 or 3 more going. I crank out the books like Kevin cranks out movies.
Thanks for being on the show. This is the Sam Sorbo Show. And before I go, just know you can join us in Israel, not with Craig. I don't think you're coming, but you're invited. But you're invited to join us in Israel next year, May of 2023. Go to sorboisraeltrip.com.